Light a campfire and everyone's a storyteller. Join us for some thought-provoking and beyond fireside chats.
Hello and welcome to Leave Our World a Better Place. Today we'll be joining in the celebration of And Beyond's 30-year anniversary as we listen to some conservation legends describe how the company has decided to mark this milestone by launching a series of limited edition experiences. Designed to help trace how And Beyond has used the decades since its launch to help make its world a better place, the itineraries mark the company's conservation achievements and combine some of the world's most iconic species with behind-the-scenes access to conservation experts that range from marine biologists to wildlife translocation specialists and more. In this podcast, we listen to the experts who will be hosting these extraordinary journeys, describe the events that inspired them. First up is Nicole Robinson, And Beyond Chief Marketing Officer, who will talk about how And Beyond's vision of travel done responsibly has been brought to life.
Thank you so much for joining us. So we're celebrating our 30th anniversary. It's really meaningful to us as people in the organization that have been here a long time. But what about a 30th year anniversary is meaningful to our guests, our clients, and our other stakeholders? And in this exploration, we found a quote about time who said that we should treat time as a scarce resource and spend it carefully. And so we had a look back at how we spent our time, and we decided to create a range of meaningful experiences that we could invite others to celebrate where we have used our time to leave our world a better place. Going back to the beginning, we acknowledged that our current impact model was created by our founders who had a vision that travel done responsibly could benefit the land, wildlife, and people in the space that we operate. They started with this crazy idea of rewilding 4 derelict farms in rural pre-1994 South Africa. And in doing this, decided that it could not be achieved without making the wildlife relevant economically to the communities surrounding those farms. This vision in 1991 was not aligned with the rest of the world's mindset at that time. Most operations then would look to build a higher fence rather than a longer table. It made us have a look, I guess, now at the definition of sustainability. And by definition, sustainability requires time as a test. For us, this past 30 years has been our test of time, and we have the privilege of celebrating the conservation and community initiatives that started 30 years ago and are still in operation. We went from Africa, those 4 farms in South Africa, and our platform has now extended into Asia in 2006 and South America in 2015. Through the years of this journey, we also reflected at the power of collaboration. And for each one of our pillars of care of the land, wildlife, and people, we have partnered with some incredible organizations. And many of those are included in the experiences that we're going to take you through. Joss, our CEO, often quotes the African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And that has rung incredibly true of our story as well. Just deep diving a little bit into some of these partners. The Africa Foundation was started in 1992, a year after And Beyond, then known as Conservation Corporation Africa, or CC Africa, was formed. It was called the Rural Investment Fund at the time, and it was formed as our community development partner. In 2017, 2018, we partnered again with Africa Foundation to create the program Oceans Without Borders, of which one of the journeys we're going to go into today is based on. We've had a long-standing relationship with Africa Parks, where some of the animals that were returned to Punda have done well enough to create sustainable populations that could be extracted on to create new populations in other parks around Africa. And then Tompkins Conservation, who have a similar tenure to us, around 30 years, on a South American context. We've done some advisory work with them in South America as part of exporting our model onto that continent, which Les will take you through a little bit later. In 2017, we realized we hadn't really told our impact story really much. And most of the reason for that had been is that our team had never felt like anything was ever finished. Sustainability is a big word, and it has very many facets and lots of terminology and jargon, and it never felt like they could say anything was done. And so we came up with a construct of creating goals for 2020 that we could work towards as an organization. We are about to launch in September our 30th anniversary impact review, where we celebrate the achievements that we were able to do by focusing on those 9 goals over the last 4 years. But we also launch our Vision 2030, which is our big, chunky, hairy 5 pillars that we're focusing on as an organization over the next 10 years. We've created milestone goals to 2025, and those will be in the report that we launch in September. So it's been 30 years and quite a journey. We're going to focus today on 2015 with Pinda donating lines to Apigera. We're going to focus in on 2018, where Oceans Without Borders was created, when we ventured into South America. There are many milestones along the way, and there's many more stories to tell. This batch of journeys is just the first batch. We will be launching through the rest of the year other sets of experiences that help tell some of our impact stories. I'm excited for you to meet some of my favorite storytellers as we celebrate these journeys. First off is Dr. Tessa Hempson, who has a PhD in coral reef ecology from James Cook University. For me, Tessa has a combination of deep insight from many years of study, but can explain it to me in such a way that I get excited and passionate about the ocean. So over to you, Tess.
Wow, thank you, Nicole. That was a really lovely intro. Thank you for this opportunity to share some of our world with you and what we're excited about in these new journeys. As Nicole said, just over 3 years ago now, we took the success of this impact model and 30 years of experience in conservation and migrated that into the ocean. And that led to the formation of the Oceans Without Borders program, which I have the privilege of leading. It's a very dynamic intersectoral partnership between and beyond, and their not-for-profit community development focused partner, Africa Foundation. And the program spans an extent of 3,000 kilometers of African coastline currently, which covers the marine footprint of and beyond. So from Lemba Island in the Zanzibar archipelago, and then down through Mozambique, which includes Vemisi Island in the north, Benguela Island further south, and then down into the South African coastline, Isimangaliso and beyond. Central to this vision for Oceans Without Borders, while we focus very much on conservation and monitoring and community development, a core part of that is the vision to immerse our guests in these really astounding wild watery environments in an attempt to inspire, to educate, and to build an awareness about the really tangible ways that each of us can influence marine conservation on a daily basis from wherever we live in the world, and in so doing, help leave our oceans a better place. For me, one of the really, really exciting opportunities in marine conservation is the fact that we don't have to live on the coastline to impact the health of our oceans. So much of the health of our oceans is actually reliant on actions that happen many thousands of kilometers away from the ocean in our daily lives. So we can directly influence the well-being of our oceans by the choices we make on a daily basis, the things we choose to buy, how much we consume, the way we choose to travel. And it is all very much centered around this theme of connectivity in our oceans. Our oceans are fundamentally connected to each other through the watery masses that flow around our globe, through our actions and ecosystems we inhabit. This journey, this greatest marine migration expedition, is an incredible opportunity to immerse our guests in a truly spectacular marine experience, to firsthand experience the connectivity of our oceans at a truly grand scale. So if there was ever a way to be blown away and inspired by our oceans and directly experience connectivity, then the Sardine Run and this greatest marine migration expedition is most certainly it. The journey begins on a very wild and dramatic coastline. This is the Wild Coast, otherwise known as the Transkei. They're just these incredible dramatic coasts with waterfalls falling off into the ocean, and these hills that are covered in lawns and these flowering aloes that kind of roll into the sea. Just offshore, the water is literally teeming with life. It's really something to behold. This is all driven by these huge shoals of sardines and other bait fish that every year in the winter in South Africa follow the cold waters up the east coast and aggregate along this coastline between the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal. And along with these big shoals of fish come predators. So these predators are drawn from many, many thousands of kilometers away across the ocean. And for a brief moment, for a few months, not even months, very often it's a concentration of weeks. The short space of time, there's this huge abundance of food on this coastline. and this intensity of life that is just absolutely, it's a mind-blowing experience. To get into it, we need to get out on the water. Every morning, we head out on a semi-inflatable boat just after first light. So it's a bit like a game drive. You head off, and those very early morning hours are the really productive, exciting time when things happen. And at the same time, our eye in the sky, so our microlight pilot launches up into the air, and he's going scouting to look for the action. And the way he spots us, or what he's looking for, is these concentrations of birds or of dolphins or any kind of predation kind of happening in this really concentrated patch. And that's the signal that there's likely to be a bait ball. And then he radios down to the boat and we can go and investigate. The dolphins, they're the real architects of these bait balls. So dolphins are incredibly energetic. They can put on these speeds of over 30 kilometers an hour, and they're very impressive in terms of the way they work together. So incredibly cooperative. So they carve off these smaller shoals of fish from the main shoal and herd them all together into these dense schools, which we call bait balls. And once the dolphins have created that really kind of tight school of fish, then they're birds that rain down in their thousands. So gannets and skuas and albatrosses and all sorts of birds, just thousands of them rain down and attack the fish from above. And then from below, these poor fish are being attacked by sharks and often whales and all sorts of things coming at them from the bottom. And it's just this frenzy of feeding that goes on. And these events they can appear for a matter of seconds and be gone again, or they can stabilize for a number of hours. And when you get these stable bait balls, that's the really special opportunity for us to slip into the water, grab a camera, and just sit back and watch the action. While these bait balls get a huge amount of their attention, they're actually very, very small component of this overwhelming marine wildlife experience. From the boat, you're often surrounded by schools of thousands and thousands of dolphins, literally. You can hear their clicking and squeaking and whistling from the boat, and under the water, it's almost deafening sometimes. There are whales that migrate up from the Southern Ocean annually. So they come all the way from Antarctica, heading up to the warm waters on the equator, where they give birth and raise their young for a few months. And fortuitously, their northward migration aligns exactly with the Sardine Run event. So much of the time that you're out on the ocean, you are chaperoned by whales, breaching, tail slapping, waving their huge pectoral fins. And it's just a truly remarkable display. And beyond marine passion and focus on marine conservation and recognition of the importance of conserving our ecosystems as a whole, actually began long before Oceans Without Borders, when the dream of Phinda was first realized. And the focus then was on the marine ecosystems of the Isimangaliso World Heritage Wetland Park. So to finish off our expedition, we head north back to where it all began, to Phinda. And for the last day of the journey, we spend a day on the ocean, exploring the wild, vibrant reefs of the Sodwana Bay coral reef ecosystems. And this is where I really first fell in love with marine ecosystems in a truly intense way. So a day there for me is just, it really goes back to the very beginning of it all. And one of the really exciting potential experiences that you stand to have in Sodwana is an interaction with these bottlenose dolphins. And they're different to the huge schools of common dolphins that you mostly encounter on the Transkei coast. These ones are incredibly playful. They come and seek you out, they play with you, they'll do somersaults with you underwater, and spending a few moments engaging with these creatures is something that's nothing short of life-changing. Ending it off in Phinda gives you an opportunity to reflect on the connectivity of these ecosystems and how we need to view ocean conservation and the conservation of our wild environments as a whole, and consider how they're connected to us and our well-being. And this is something I've spent many hours discussing with my friend and colleague, Simon Naylor, who has been part of the And Beyond Impact journey from almost the very beginning. So with 25 years in Phinda and spending 15 of those years managing the reserve, Simon has been responsible for a huge amount of the conservation and the impact and the change that has happened over those years. So, Si, over to you for the next exciting journey.
Thanks, Tessa. I come to you from Phinda itself. The journey that I want to sort of share with you that we've got planned is one that I was personally involved in 2015, which was the restoration of lions from Phinda to Akagera National Park in Rwanda. Yeah, just to sort of set the scene, if you didn't know where Phinda was, we're on the east coast of South Africa. The journey itself was quite a remarkable journey. I mean, if you didn't know where Rwanda was, it's in Central Africa. It's about 4,500 kilometers away from Phinda. So quite a remarkable story is the reintroduction of lions back into Akagera National Park. And this, as I said, took place in 2015. Rwanda has a very sad history in terms of conflict. And, we all know about the genocide that took place there in 1994. And as a result of that, Akagera National Park in Rwanda lost all of its lions. They had lions there up until 1994. And so they went extinct. And the reason for that was the refugees that were returning after the conflict came back and basically took all the lions' prey. They invaded the national park and lions disappeared. And that's kind of what we're going to experience is on this journey is the story of lion restoration in Pinda and the journey that these lions took to Rwanda in 2015. So basically, I just wanted to share with you what actually took place. It's slightly different to the experience that Tessa is hosting. Is this is something that was done historically, but I think the purpose of this journey is to immerse ourselves in lion conservation and how the two parks are managing and conserving these endangered. Well, they're not quite endangered yet, but we believe that there's 20,000 lions left in Africa. We've lost about 50% of our lion population in Africa in the last 25 years. And Pinda has a remarkable story of the reintroduction of lions into this sort of old farmland. And the story began with obviously the donation of these lions to Rwanda. And we selected certain individuals from 3 different prides. We had to choose these lions very carefully, and we decided to take them from different prides to increase the sort of genetic profile of these animals. Remembering that in Rwanda, they're going to become an isolated population there. So we wanted as much genetic diversity as possible. So we darted 5 lionesses. What that means is shooting them with a tranquilizer dart, and then we would place them into our bomas or enclosures. And we kept them there for about a month just to acclimatize firstly to one another, and then also just to prepare them for the long journey to Rwanda. And then, in June 2015, we then prepared these lionesses for the long journey. What was also very, very key for us was to ensure that we sent healthy lions, and here we are checking for various feline diseases. Lions, even wild lions, do pick up a number of diseases that obviously, you don't want to send lions to start a new population that are unhealthy. Unfortunately, the lions that we have at Pinda are some of the most healthiest and genetically diverse lions in South Africa. And then the journey itself, basically, we would have to redart these lionesses, and we designed and built special crates that they would need to sort of stay in for their 24-hour journey to Rwanda by plane. These crates, there's a little sort of box inside there so that these lions, we would, obviously they go in sleeping, but we would wake them up so that they're not sleeping the whole journey. So they're fully awake, but obviously sedated to keep them calm. But we could water them and we don't feed them on the journey. They were transported to Johannesburg by road, where they then went onto a plane, went through customs, can you believe it, and immigration. And then they arrived in Rwanda 12 hours later. And what was quite amazing, lions had been extinct in Rwanda for about 15 years. And there was a lot of excitement about these lions. And the whole country got very, very excited about these lions coming back after, being absent for so many years. And this offloading of the crates in Kigali off the aircraft, and then they proceeded to drive them to Akagera National Park. So what's very important is before they release, they spend about 2-3 weeks acclimatizing to their new home in a boma again, and they were fed there. And what was quite remarkable is how these lionesses bonded with each other. They're all unrelated, which sort of disproves the theory that you can't put unrelated lions together, and that would form the nucleus of this new population. And what's really incredible is how they've done in Akagera. It's obviously been 6 years now, and through close monitoring in Akagera National Park, the population has now reached about 40 individuals. And a lot of work has been done on monitoring them and research. The whole journey has been incredibly successful. And what's quite amazing about this whole story is Pinda did exactly what Akagera did 30 years ago. There weren't any lions here on Pinda. A small nucleus of animals was brought here, and the lions have done incredibly well here. We've had over 100 litters, 200 births, and as a result, we've been able to sort of provide these animals to other parks where they've gone locally extinct as well. So I think the purpose of this journey, as I mentioned, is to sort of delve into the conservation and the management and the monitoring of lions, not just here in Phinda, but also in Akagera, and to follow the footsteps of these animals and to go and physically see these lionesses in Akagera National Park, to interact with the conservation staff there at African parks. And so I think anyone that is attracted to lions and the conservation of lions will not only get to see lions, but to sort of really get to understand the challenges that lions face in the wild and how they managed and obviously contribute towards the continued success of lion conservation in both these parks. So that's the journey that I'll be hosting, and hopefully the folk and the guests that join us will leave with a much better understanding and appreciation of these incredible animals in Africa and our efforts to conserve them and make sure that they don't go extinct, which is where they're heading at the moment. Yeah, and so on that note, I'll hand over to my colleague Les Carlisle, who actually needs no introduction. Les pioneered a lot of these techniques that we've used here on this journey and this reintroduction. And I mean, he started at Phinda 30 years ago and has been with And Beyond for 30 years. And so, I'll hand over to Les to continue.
Fantastic. Thanks. If you look at the initial translocations that set Phinda up, the successes that we've had with those terrestrial conservation initiatives that started the Oceans Without Borders and Tessa's experience that she's alluded to, and then the direct impact at species level that's happened with the rewilding of Phinda. And Simon's journey is going to take you through the potential that has for export and the impact that it has across many different countries. And then the whole export of the And Beyond model into different continents, first India and then South America. And I've got the privilege of hosting this trip into South America, which is really quite remarkable. With two different countries, we're going to Argentina and to Chile. And we're going to be looking at rewilding and the models that were developed at Phinda. And as Nicole said in the introduction, we were able to take our experience from the rewilding of lions in Africa and advise Tompkins Conservation on the reintroduction of jaguar into the Ibera wetland in Argentina. And this is just the most remarkable place. It really is. And our connection with Tompkins Conservation came through their head of conservation at the time, a chap called Ignacio Jimenez. And Ignacio invited me to come across and participate in a workshop on the reintroduction of the jaguars into the Ibera wetland. So I was one of the specialist resources that was informing the Argentinian authorities, the NGOs, the local farmers. They assembled a large group of people, all the interested and affected parties that would be affected by this jaguar reintroduction. And we debated what the best way to do this reintroduction was. And it's been quite remarkable to see the actual success that they've had with the reintroduction. And the Ibera wetland is very reminiscent of the Okavango Delta. This vast flat expanse with waterways and islands, some of them just grass, some of them with grass and vegetation, but the most spectacular habitat you can imagine, full of capybara, which is the biggest rodent in the world, a prey species, obviously, for the reintroduced jaguars. And then Tompkins Conservation, being who they are and rewilding all of these habitats, their primary objective is to take blocks of land that have conservation relevance, purchase them, rewild them, get them to the biodiversity levels that they were at historically, and then hand them back to the state as national parks. So they recreate national parks, and we'll be going through this journey with them of reintroducing pampas deer into this habitat. They had been locally extinct in this habitat, reintroducing giant anteaters, and even reintroducing the birds that used to exist in the system, some of which have become extinct. And there's a remarkable species called a red-legged Sarima. It's like probably the same size as a hardy-dar ibis or a goose in the UK, but it's got long red legs like an ostrich. So it's like a mini ostrich, and it's a predatory bird, and it walks around like a mini secretary bird in an African context. So this Tompkins Conservation initiative called the Rewilding Foundation in Argentina has gone the whole 9 yards of rewilding everything from birds through the prey species and then to the ultimate predators being the jaguars that are rewilded into that habitat. It's quite remarkable when you think about jaguars being the apex predators, and how normally the apex predators are the first to be hit in any reintroduction situation. If we go back to the movement from Argentina, the trip we're going to take is going to be in the Ibera wetland, and then we're going to move across the Andes Mountains, across the volcanoes to Chile. And when you move across the mountains, obviously one of the things that happens is the habitat and the species all change. So coming from this unbelievable wetland in Argentina, where the birds have got the most remarkable, there's a bird with this very strange tail. It's got half a standard straight quill with nothing on it, and then it's got this flared feather at the end. And it's called a strange-tailed tyrant, of course, because it's got this weirdly strange tail. So you're going from these incredible birds, this incredible reintroduction in a wetland, which is completely flat, to the highest peaks in the whole of South America, in the Andes Mountains, and the incredible habitat change that takes place. And when we move into the Andes Mountains, you've got the Patagonian steppe full of guanacos, which are like wild llamas. And the predator in that particular area will be operating around Torres del Paine National Park is, of course, the puma. You have exactly the same situation in India when the tigers are notified, or the tourists are notified by predators' presence by the alarm calls of spotted deer or monkeys in the trees. Exactly the same thing happens in Chile when we in the Patagonian steppe. You walk in these massive herds of guanaco that are feeding on these mountain slopes below the snow-capped peaks. And then you hear one guanaco will alarm call, and you can have a look at where it's looking, and you'll hear the others start alarming in the valley, and they'll all be looking in the same direction. And when you spy down into the bottom of the valley, my experience was walking through the grass, a puma. The most amazing experience. A very similar system of notification and warning through all of the prey species happens in all three of the continents. So the export of the and beyond model has been remarkable in that we've been able to export it to like-minded partners in different countries. We'll be traveling with partners into this Torres del Paine region. We'll be operating with Tompkins Conservation, where the export of the conservation model has been so unbelievably successful. And then we'll round off our trip at Vera Vera, which is the and beyond lodge. So that's the export of the whole model into South America. And if you look at the Vera Vera environment, it's snow-capped volcanoes, absolutely crystal clear rivers, where you can see the bottom of the river from the boat. Quite remarkable. The and beyond hospitality applied at all of these unbelievable facilities, and the interpretive experience that's provided by our guests. And we link into both the sustainability of the lodge and this incredible environment, and the communities that make and have protected this environment, the Mapuche community in this particular case in the Lake District of Chile, where we end the journey. So a quite remarkable journey across two completely different countries, seeing completely different habitats, and all of this examples of the export of the unbelievable and beyond impact journey. And this journey will be a celebration of all of those impacts.
For more on these exclusive limited edition expeditions, log on to andbeyond.com and click on Small Group Journeys. And Beyond will be bringing out a number of additional experiences that help tell some of its impact stories until the end of the year. So keep an eye on the And Beyond website or social media channels for more exceptional adventures.